So there's, as we mentioned the other day, there's 28 verses in this chapter discussing all about how devotional service surpasses the liberation. And there's a famous verse in the first canto of Bhagavatam, chapter 7, verse 10. It's called the Atmaram verse. And that also shows that one who is one is fixed in devotion, then he's free from all interest in jnana and karma. There's an interesting point here, actually, on page 45, Prabhupada's purport, because sometimes people ask this, chapter 4. Sometimes people say, well, if you go to Vaikuntha, if you become elevated and you enter Vaikuntha, the spiritual world, can you go from there to Goloka or to Braja Gokul? Can you elevate yourself, go beyond that? And so there's different ideas, but Prabhupada says here that some of the liberated persons who have achieved these 4 stages of liberation may also develop affection for Krishna and be promoted to the Goloka Vrindavan planet in the spiritual sky. In other words, those who are already promoted to the Vaikuntha planets and who possess four kinds of liberation may also sometimes develop affection for Krishna and become promoted to Krishna Loka. It's very interesting. In other words, some jivas, some living entities, they enter the spiritual world. They attain Salokya Mukti or Sarupya Mukti or Shashti Mukti or Samipya Mukti. They attain the same 4-arm form as Vishnu, and a beautiful blue body with 4 arms and lotus petal eyes and long hair and very beautiful, attractive forms. And that's called Sarupya. That is the form of Vishnu. And they're living there. But somehow they see paintings of Krishna, or they hear stories of Krishna, and they become attracted to Krishna, even in Vaikuntha. And then they practice some kind of Krishna bhajan, Krishna bhakti. And they develop love for Krishna. And they can actually be promoted from Vaikuntha to Krishna Loka. Very interesting stage. This you don't hear very often, such a thing. So, because people say, well, can you change your rasa? Or can you elevate yourself from Vaikuntha to Goloka? Prabhupada is saying that there's 4 kinds of liberation, Vaishnava liberation, which we're not, those that are engaged in bhakti are not really concerned. But there's Salokya liberation, and Sarupya, and Sharsti, and Samipya. Means to live in association with the Lord, Samipya. Sharsti is to have a palace like the Lord, big palace, and so many servants, have equal opulence. Sarupya is to have the same form, except no Kaustuba and no Srivats. It's Sarupya. And Salokya is to live on the same planet. So these are all Vaishnava liberations, and they are all received at the platform of pure devotion, Shantaras or Dasyaras. One has attained prema, and he goes there. Now, listen to this. Some of these liberated persons may also develop affection for Krishna and be promoted to the Goloka Vrindavan planet in the spiritual sky. And beyond Vaikuntha. In other words, people often ask the question, well, do people ever change their rasa? Because in Vaikuntha, the only rasas are Shanta and Dasya, basically. Even the so-called Madhurya or conjugal love of Lakshmi is basically Dasya. She says massaging his feet most of the time. It's very much Aishvarya Mayi Bhakti, filled with Aishvarya. In other words, those who are already promoted to Vaikuntha planets and who possess the 4 kinds of liberation may sometimes develop affection for Krishna and become promoted to Krishna Loka. That means you have to change your rasa, because in Goloka and Braja Krishna Loka, the main rasa, there's basically 3 rasas. Sakya, Vatsalya, and Madhurya. Parakya and Swakya. Dwarka is Swakya and Vrindavan is Parakya. So this is very interesting. That means you can not only go from Vaikuntha to Krishna Loka, but it can change rasa also. Although it's nitya, it's sthayi bhav, it's your nitya siddha bhava, as we mentioned the other day. It can change. How it changes, I can't say. Somebody stops over there, Narada Muni visits Vaikuntha, and he's glorifying Narayan, and he starts singing Radha Sahasranam. Because this whole chapter is about how devotional service surpasses liberation. This chapter is all about glorifying devotional service, that it surpasses liberation and all these other